All right, let's talk about one of the most complicated, tangled up relationships in South Asia, the one between Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's a real story of shared roots, deep connections, but also just constant conflict. So let's try and unravel this thing.
I think this quote just hits the nail on the head. Imagine two brothers stuck in the same room. They can't escape each other. That's Afghanistan and Pakistan. For better or worse, their geography means they have to deal with each other. But just like with siblings, that doesn't always mean they're going to get along.
So, yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Why is it so complicated? I mean, you've got shared faith, so much similar culture, even ethnic groups that cross the border. So why does it always seem to end up in mistrust and tension? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look back, way back. So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at all the things that connect them. Then we'll dig into the history, starting with a line drawn during the British Raj that caused all sorts of problems. We'll see how their relationship has been a mix of friendship and, well, enmity. Then we'll cover how 9/11 changed the game completely, look at the challenges they're facing right now, and finally, ask, is there a way forward? Okay, first step, the web of relations. Before we get into all the conflict, it's really important to get just how deeply connected these two countries are. I mean, if you just looked at this on paper, you'd think they'd be the best of friends. They share this super important border, the vast majority of people share the same fate, there are huge cultural overlaps, and you have entire ethnic groups like the Pashtuns who have families on both sides of the border. They are fundamentally, undeniably linked. And now, we get to the root of so many of the problems. We have to go back in time to a single line drawn on a map by the British. This is where a lot of the trouble really starts. So check out this timeline. It all kicks off in 1893 with something called the Durand Line. Fast forward to 1947, when British India is being partitioned. Afghanistan actually demanded that the Pashtun areas either become their own country or join them. When that didn't happen, Afghanistan cast the only vote against Pakistan joining the United Nations. Talk about a rocky start to a relationship. So what exactly is this Durand Line? Well, it's the 2,670-kilometer border between the two countries. But the key thing to understand is that it was drawn up by the British back in 1893. And Afghanistan has, for over a century, argued that this line is not legitimate. They say it was forced on them and that it unnaturally split the Pashtun people in two. This one colonial-era line is still a massive source of tension today. And, that deep sense of mistrust, it doesn't just disappear. It bleeds right into our next chapter, dosti or dushmani, or friendship and enmity. Because their relationship after independence has been a total paradox. But here's where it gets complicated. Because there was a moment of real friendship, of real support. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979, Pakistan stepped up big time. It became a frontline state, funneling support to the Afghan resistance fighters, the Mujahideen. And, incredibly, it opened its borders to millions of Afghan refugees, creating one of the largest refugee populations anywhere in the world. But, and this is a huge but, even that incredible support couldn't just wipe the slate clean. The old mistrust was still there, simmering under the surface. Afghanistan would often oppose Pakistan in diplomatic circles, and you had all these other countries, these external powers, meddling and making things worse. It meant a real, stable friendship just never had a chance to grow. And then 9/11 happened, and that just changed everything. It was a seismic shock to the whole world, but especially to this region. This kicked off the post-9/11 era, which created a whole new and even more fractured dynamic between these two neighbors. So after 9/11, you get this really fractured picture. On one side, Pakistan becomes a major ally in the war on terror, giving huge amounts of diplomatic, financial, and military support. But from Pakistan's point of view, that cooperation wasn't always returned. For instance, the Afghan government at the time was dead set against Pakistan's plan to build a fence along the Durand Line to try and control who was crossing the border. In all that instability, all that war in Afghanistan, well, it had to go somewhere. It couldn't just stay contained within Afghanistan's borders. It spilled over, and that spillover led directly to the creation of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP. This group basically started its own war inside Pakistan, causing a huge security crisis that the country is still dealing with today. Which brings us right up to today. When the Taliban took over again in Afghanistan in 2021, some people thought maybe things would get simpler. They didn't. In fact, it's just created a whole new set of really complex challenges. So let's just run through the big issues they're facing right now. Top of the list, terrorism from the TTP, with attacks across the border getting worse. Then there's the really tough issue of what to do with unregistered Afghan refugees. You've got major economic problems, with money flowing out of Pakistan. The border itself is a constant source of disputes and shutdowns, and they're even arguing over water rights from the Kabul River. And this right here is probably the biggest issue. Pakistan says that the new administration in Afghanistan promised they wouldn't let militant groups use their country as a base, but the accusation is that they're not cracking down on the TTP at all. Some even say they might be using the TTP as a bargaining chip, a way to put pressure on Pakistan. It's a tough situation for them, since the Afghan Taliban and the TTP have historic ties, which makes any real crackdown very, very tricky. So, wow, with all these problems stacked on top of a century of mistrust, you have to ask, what is the path forward? I mean, is there any way to break this cycle? Let's take a look at what cooperation could look like. It's funny because when you step back, the reasons for them to work together are just so obvious. Afghanistan has no coastline. It is completely landlocked. It absolutely needs Pakistan's ports to trade with the rest of the world. On the flip side, Pakistan would love to have a stable gateway through Afghanistan to get to the energy-rich countries in Central Asia. And all that shared culture and faith, it should be the foundation for peace, not conflict. Okay, so what would it actually take to get there? Well, most analysts point to three big steps. Step one, an inclusive government in Afghanistan, one that represents everybody, not just one group. Step two, a zero-tolerance policy against terrorism, with a special focus on the TTP. And step three, ramp up economic cooperation. Imagine extending a huge project like the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor into Afghanistan. That could create shared prosperity for everyone. Which brings us right back to where we started, with those two siblings sharing a room. After all of it, the colonial line, the invasions, the wars, the deep, deep mistrust, the basic question is still the same. Can these two neighbors, bound together forever by geography, finally figure out how to live like brothers? The answer to that question is going to shape the future for the entire region.